Hello and welcome to Drive and Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into this week's episode, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. If you head on over to patreon.com/drive and double feature podcast, you can check out some fun bonus content like conversations and games just for $5 a month. And if you want to hear it from John Cryer himself, he he wouldn't comment. I tried to ask him how he felt about the Drive and Double Feature Podcast Patreon, and I got nothing back in my email, no calls. I found his address, and I got nothing back from him. So maybe Ryan, you're on to something about this Crier guy.
Yeah,
I bet you he doesn't subscribe to the Patreon like half the world.
I bet you he does not.
Damn. Well, let's get into this week. We are doing a John Cryer movie. We are doing No Small Affair from 1984. And I should also say that it's the return of Demi Moore, who was in one of last week's movies, Nothing But Trouble. This movie is directed by Jerry Schatzberg, who
What a name.
I know, right? Schatzberg. He actually won the grand prize at the 1973 Cannes Film Festival for the movie Scarecrow.
Oh,
I've never heard of that movie. It
I've heard
starred,
of it. Al
yeah,
Pacino and
Gene
Gene
Hackman.
Hackman.
Oh my God. Rest in peace, Gene Hackman. As we record this, he just we found out he passed away, and that's been a whole story today in itself.
Let's talk about that
Yeah,
instead.
I mean, maybe. I
Eh,
mean, I can't make any predictions or anything. But like, isn't that crazy? They reopened the case. I can't wait to
yeah.
listen to this a week from now and see what like comes from this. Um, but back to No Small Affair, which doesn't have Gene Hackman, but it does have Jennifer Tilly and Tim Robbins in it as well in their screen debuts. It's actually John Cryer's screen debut, and he got to star in a movie. What charisma? What power? That I think that's the word to use for him. Brian, what are some words you would use to describe him?
Uh, Annoying, unlikable,
Mm-hmm.
obnoxious,
Okay. I
uh,
You don't have to be sarcastic. We can be genuine. No, I get it. The reason I picked this one is because last week before the show, Ryan was talking about how much he hates John Cryer. And I mean, to be honest with you, I guess
well,
I
let me clarify. Let me clarify before you make such a
okay.
sweeping statement.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
I don't hate John Cryer. I haven't liked any of the characters he's ever portrayed ever.
Okay, yeah, that's a better way to put it.
I don't know the man personally. I'm sure he's him, and but, but
But you
I
don't
don't.
hate him.
No, don't
Okay.
hate him.
Okay, I get that. I get that. Yeah, I honestly have never really watched anything with him in it. I've seen Pretty in Pink, which I do have to admit, we talked about this. His character, his name is Ducky in that movie, right?
Yes.
Um, it is a pretty hard to watch character, and I think it makes complete sense in the end of that movie that he doesn't get the girl. I think that's correct.
I mean,
Uh,
he's terrible in that movie. Like he's such
yeah.
an awful person.
Yeah, and let's be honest, he's not much better in this movie either.
No.
Yes, it's actually really interesting. I don't know, just from like an 80s perspective, this movie makes a lot of sense with its like sensibilities. But before we get into that, this movie is about the character Charles Cummings. He is a 16-year-old, he's in high school, and he is a photographer. He's obsessed with photography. In the beginning of the movie, we get him shooting scenes of a boardwalk, and then in walks Demi Moore, who is a singer, and she's having a huge fight on the pier. And he almost instantly falls in love with this movie. Here's the thing, though, and this is only a problem now because in the movie they sure don't make it a problem. She is 22 and he is 16. Um, and he is infatuated with her, like in love with her. Luckily, I think for most of the movie, Demi Moore does play it well because she does treat him as like this quirky guy that's just been like hanging around her and uses him for photos and stuff like that. It's not as creepy in the beginning as you would expect that idea would be.
No. And I gotta, well, I mean, and I don't think he was even like remember he was like kind of a jerk to them, like at first. Like,
Oh yeah, he was like, get out of my shot.
what? Which I'm like, again, I was already like, okay, this guy's kind of annoying because he's like, he's at a photographer and he's like, he's setting up a camera in a public place,
hmm
and like he's getting mad at like people like enjoying the public space. It's like you're ruining my picture. Like,
Yeah, but that's the thing. He's so obsessed. He's such a great artist. That's his thing. I don't know, but I do agree. Like that is really annoying, and he's like that like the whole movie. There's a scene where he's in a club and he's taking pictures of Demi Moore's band, and he's just in front of people snapping pictures, and they're trying to rip him out of there. Like the bodyguards there pulling him out. And he's like, "No, I got to get my shot. I got to get my picture."
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like in this movie, I don't know, he's kind of portrayed as like the like, oh, I'm smarter than everybody else in my family.
hmm
I'm above all of them because and everyone else is trash type of thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It gives like a Ferris Bueller vibe, even though this is before that, where
I was
he.
thinking more like Catcher in the Rye, like they're trying to make him like one of those types of
Oh,
guys.
I got you. Okay. That's smart. I like that. And it even has a monologue. He monologues over the movie. You kind of hear his thoughts.
But
Wait. Okay.
I just didn't, I don't know about you, but like, I don't really feel like his treatment of his family was really justified, or at least like in what we saw.
I
Like there,
agree. Everyone seems to treat him all right. His mom seems to just care about him.
yeah, like at no point did it ever see, I mean, like they kind of alluded to it, like she brings home a bunch of men and,
hmm
you know, introduces him as her boyfriend or whatever, and that his brother is kind of like a pig, I guess, in terms of like he's very misogynistic or whatever,
hmm
and it's like because he said, "Oh, we're your brother's bringing his fiance." It's like, no, 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 he's got a different fiance now. So
Yeah, yeah, and he even like is mean about it, and like is like tells his mom like, "Oh, have you ever thought that the fiance was just so they could sleep together when they come here? They're not actually getting married." Which he says that and that instantly backfires because he is actually like with this lady, plans on marrying her.
yeah, like at no point did it ever was like because I thought it was gonna be like he was cheating on her or whatever, and
Yeah, if anything, she was like completely okay with everything he did because like they're even going to stag party. They're gonna have a prostitute there, and it just seems like she doesn't really even care. She just seems like a happy-go-lucky person. So if anything, they were happy together. But I mean, most of his ire comes towards her boyfriend, who isn't just like a man that she sleeps with once because he's in the rest of the movie, played by Jeffrey Tambor, by the way, as the boyfriend, kind of like this
yeah.
dorky guy.
But
Um,
even he's like a reasonable guy. It's not like he's a bad
mhm,
guy. He's like he even says to like his like to Chuck's mom or whatever, like,
mhm.
oh, this is just a phase, just let him be, let him do his thing type of thing. And he's not like a hard ass about it or whatever. He was kind of just like,
Yeah,
hey, like I know it's kind of fun to be weird and kooky right now, but eventually, you're gonna kind of normal out.
yeah.
And I know like in the movie that's supposed to be like a
How
bad
dare
thing.
you?
Yeah. But I'm like, he's kind of right. Like,
No, I mean, like, yeah, I think he said it wrong, but like, it's kind of like he has the right idea. But I think you're supposed to hate Jeffrey Tambor in this movie, but I never really hated him. Like at one point, he was like, "Oh, the army could help him a lot," but it's not like I've seen plenty of movies with a new man coming into the house and sending a child to military school and being very like, "You have to go to military school." He just like poses as like, "Oh, that could help him out." I don't know. It's
yeah.
never like super like mean.
Yeah. So at no point did I ever have any negative feelings towards everybody else. I did have negative feelings towards John Cryer's character, but like everyone else, I was like, no, they're fine.
No, I totally get that. And before we move on, I want to say, did you happen to notice who did the music for this movie?
No.
Okay, so Rupert. Holmes did the music for this. And does that name ring a bell?
If you like pina
Yeah,
coladas,
yeah,
yeah.
there you go. Yeah, that guy. He did the music for this movie. I don't know. It wasn't very notable, the music, but I just was like, that's really odd.
It just has
um,
like songs, but they're all about pina coladas.
Pina coladas, just over and
No
over.
small pina colada.
There we go. I like Demi Moore and her band just sings about pina coladas. Oh man. But yeah, he does the music. And you know what? I also want to talk a little bit about the making of this movie. Because it's kind of interesting. The production of this movie started in 1981. And it was going to star Matthew Broderick and Sally Field, which is a little bit more of an age gap. And
Still,
then
that's an odd pairing.
it really is. It probably wouldn't have worked. But what happened was the director, Martin Ritt, got really sick and they had to just completely shut down the movie. And then not till a few
Wait,
years like
Martin Ritt was going to direct it?
yeah, it was going to be directed by Martin Ritt. Yeah. Yeah, and he got really sick. It shut down. And then I guess in 1984 they decided to bring it back. Um, and then Ellen Barkin was supposed to play Demi Moore's role for the longest time, and they fired her for whatever reason. I couldn't find a reason why. But yeah, that would be a different movie as well.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and this movie it's kind of a lazy movie, honestly. There's like a plot line, but it doesn't do anything too huge. John Cryer gets kicked out of the club that Demi Moore goes to, but he's just so obsessed with the idea of taking photos of her because she's so beautiful, and he goes to like crazy lengths. And the club owner, that becomes like a big part of the story because Demi Moore, for whatever reason, this club is her ticket to fame, and she believes in that, and she'll do anything for it. The club owner is played by
George Wendt.
George Wendt. Thank you, George.
Returning from House.
Yeah, which is I always think like I never thought of George Wendt as like being in movies, but he's in like a ton of B movies. At least that's what it feels like.
We'll just have like a George Wendt one.
Oh my God, yeah. And we have to watch like 3 episodes of Cheers. We look up like the worst rated episodes of Cheers and we
All
watch those.
the Norm episodes.
Oh, then another Norm episode. No, that sounds like the best episodes.
Some of those are pretty funny. I went back and watched some.
Yeah, no, Cheers is a great show. But yeah, so George Wendt runs this. And I guess it plays against certain stereotypes. Demi Moore almost insinuates that George Wendt wants to sleep with her, wants to like have sex with her in order to keep her at the club. But at one point, she even offers that to him, and he says, "No, I respect you too much for that," and actually wants to like further her career later on down the line, and regrets firing her because I guess the bassist isn't working.
Well, don't you think that was weird? Like he said that, but then later, like she said, like she implied that like that's what he wanted. She's like,
He
remember,
did,
like
yeah.
she's like, oh, like unless my boss wants to play hide the sausage or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. She's like playing him like worse than he actually is. Maybe Demi
I was
Moore
like,
and John Cryer are a
I,
good match.
because I thought that I'm like, he doesn't really seem like very predatory or whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
he was maybe taking like advantage of her a little bit. I thought
I
like when
think I think there was a scene where he grabs her butt.
where there's that, and then there's the scene too where he's like, I'm gonna call on a different band to play, and then basically
Hmm.
like forcing her to like leave her band and work for no money just because
Mm.
she wanted to play that bad.
Exactly. But yeah, like we were talking about, I do think Cummings, as they call him, he's a bit of an annoying character, and that's because the writing writes him as like some type of hero type, some like beaten down, bullied kid that, like is able to like rise to the top. And I really don't see that. I see this as more of a character that that almost forces like wanting recognition. Like literally later in the movie, he pays $6,000 and he expects the world from that, right? Like he gives something and expects something back rather than being like humble. He's like that kind of character. It's really kind of annoying.
Yeah, like I was trying to figure out if we were like, were we trying to basically recognize that he was very immature in that moment, or were we trying to, or is the movie being like, no, he did the right thing? Because I think that's what they were trying to go for, is like he did a good thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I remember I'm like, I would hate his guts if he did that. Like,
Yeah, because it's really bad. I mean, this is skipping way ahead, but since we're here, he takes his life savings that he's gathered up, $6,000 for a
because he's gonna
trip.
go to Italy.
Yeah, yeah, he wants to become a photographer there. And but instead, he donates $6,000 to his taxi cab company so he can paste Demi Moore's picture all over taxi cabs. And of course, people think she's like a prostitute or something. But come to find out, that actually makes her more famous. Um, and because of that, she's like, "Oh, well, thank you, Cummings. I really appreciate that. You're really a close friend." So of course he gets friend zoned, as they would say, but it's the 80s, right? So it's played a lot more different than it would be nowadays because he's really immature, like you said. He's like, "Oh, well, I gave you $6,000, and I didn't know you were going to go away and be famous. I thought you'd be here with me, a 16-year-old, and you're 22. You're a 22-year-old." And I agree. I for a second thought this immaturity that's meant to be a part of this movie, right? Like that's like he's supposed to
Like
be
he's
immature. He's going to learn a lesson from this, right? No,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
no, no. Uh, instead, Demi Moore brings him back and pretty much what I feel like has pity sex with him is pretty much just like,
That's what it feels like.
yeah, it feels like the idea was like, oh, Demi Moore was supposed in this situation, he made her famous, so she's supposed to have sex with him, not be with him, but at least give him sex, which is weird because earlier in the movie, she even says that I mean she's referencing like sex and her vagina, and she's just like, that's the most pure thing I have. That's the thing that I can keep to myself, right? Like that's like my like giving that away would be the worst thing I could ever do. But she does it at the end of the movie, completely killing that line. I may be looking into this movie a little bit too deeply.
No, because I was annoyed by some of these moments, especially like that with the taxi cab. I'm like, why would you even think that was a good idea? Because it's literally just a picture of her
Uh-huh.
and like a loose fitting sweater with, it looks like she doesn't have any underwear on because
Mm-hmm.
it's just the top half of her body.
Mm-hmm.
And it just says for a good, like simply the best, and it's just her phone number, and it's like people calling her up like wanting to have sex with her,
Yeah, and then we're
and
supposed to think this is like great. Later, like, oh, he was just being nice.
well, yeah, because like she freaks out, she goes to Cummings and just is like, don't ever talk to me ever again, type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and not even real like. Then she goes to the taxi cab company being like, hey, you need to rip all those signs off your cabs, and he's like, hey man, like that guy paid me $6,000, and she's like, $6,000. Like, oh my God, he gave up Italy, and just like I need to go talk to, like she just was like immediately forgiven. Like,
Exactly. Like, oh my God, I love him.
like no, that's not how that works.
No, she should still be upset because people were blowing up her phone after that, asking for sex. Um, yeah, just like really annoying character choices like that. Outside of the movie, I should say this because sex is related here. And Demi Moore's autobiography, she says that John Cryer lost his virginity to her on set of this movie. Which is so weird. Why would you say that, for one? And then also, John Cryer later, he said, no, that's wrong. I lost my virginity in high school. And I wonder if that's wrong.
So wait,
Uh,
she was saying she took his virginity,
yeah, she was saying she took his virginity. And then John Cryer's like, no, 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 no. I lost it in high school.
but I did have sex with Demi Moore. I did.
I did. That actually happened. Wouldn't that be funny? He's like, no, 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 no. That didn't happen. No.
I was getting laid so much, and now I got laid with Demi Moore.
Yeah, such a funny like thing. This movie has a lot more history than you'd expect. But no, I bring up that I brought up earlier Jennifer Tilly, Tim Robbins are in this movie. Inconsequential. Tim Robbins is a bully. he's kind of silly. It's fun seeing him, but he's barely
Barely.
in it.
He's in like two scenes.
Yeah, and then
He's like, I did like the line where he's like, "Didn't you see me feel up her left yaya or whatever?" And he's like, "Dude, you touched her shoulder." He's like, "So they're all connected."
yeah, that was pretty funny. Yes. And
I got that made me laugh.
and Jennifer Tilly is interesting because I feel like this movie wants to be like a John Hughes movie where like it all connects. Like, oh, the girl he wasn't looking at the whole time, that's the one he goes for, right? Because in the beginning, he turns her down. She's like really aggressive, wants to be with him, and then at the end of the movie, he sees her and she says like, "Oh, I'll never be with another woman again," and then turns around and goes to Jennifer Tilly, and it's like
I'm like, that ruined the whole ending for me.
yes, yeah. Because like Jennifer Tilly is not enough of a character. Like what's some kind of wonderful has that, right? Where like it's about a character who like the girl you weren't looking at the whole time was the true love. This movie tries to do that, but it never gives Tilly enough of a character to do anything with that. Like make that important.
Well, I don't even think it was like a love thing. I think it was more of like I can go get laid real easily. It didn't
Yeah,
s-
probably.
it didn't seem like that to me because that was like she was very upfront of what she wanted from him
That's
because
true.
she was just like, "What, you don't like aggressive women? Like maybe we can go try out this like we can go to the airport. They put in a new arcade there
Hmm. And
and
that was just behind the scenes footage of Jennifer Tilly talking to John Cryer. Tilly took his virginity as well.
uh,
Uh,
everyone took his virginity.
yeah, everyone in their autobiographies is like, yeah, I took
Everyone
John Cryer's virginity.
Tim Robbins in his book. Yeah, I took John Crier's
That would be really funny. And then way later, Charlie Sheen said the same thing on Two and a Half Men.
He's like in his late 40s. It's like, yeah, I took his virginity.
That actually sounds like something he would say. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, like, if you can't tell, I didn't really like this movie. I don't think I hated it. I think I'm like really trashing it hard. I've seen way worse. It's kind of entertaining in some way, but like, I feel like the characters were not written well and made really bad decisions throughout this.
No, I mean, I didn't hate it, but it's just I I thought the characters were super unlikable in it,
Hmm.
and I just did not really care about him, and I just kind of holds to my theory. I have not liked a single character John Cryer's play, so
Well, we'll go through his whole. We started at the first movie. We're gonna go through his filmography and see
so what's
when we
next?
start liking. I actually don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But maybe we will return to him one
Superman
day.
4, where he plays Lenny Luthor.
Really? He's in Superman 4? I didn't even know that. I've
Yeah,
never seen it.
he's like his nephew or something, like
Oh
Lex
my god.
Luthor's nephew.
What the hell is this? Austin Powers? Like Seth Green? God. But I think that's both a non-recommend here. But Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, I got a trick for you.
Mm-hmm.
Play dead. Okay, you get a treat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
No, we're going to be talking about the movie Play Dead from 1983, and that is streaming for free on Tubi right now.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch that one. And if you want to email us, you can email us at drivingdoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. Check us out on check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. But until next time.
Until next time.